Hey guys, so I want to tell you about something that has been on my mind, and it's that the more I hang out with people, interact with people, have experiences with people, the more I find that they are ultimately their inferior function. And I'll let you know what I mean by that. So, when you meet people for the first time, the thing that's most obvious is their primary function and secondary function. And I call these, well, sociologists already called them this, but they're called the ego functions. And it's like how the ego is what we use to manage our day to day, to kind of figure things out moment to moment, not just for ourselves, but for other people. So it's how we help other people on a very conscious kind of basis. So that's what the ego is. However, I find that if you talk with people, it kind of forms this more surface level of their philosophy. It definitely, the primary and secondary functions are important for forming our philosophy, but it's at a more surface level. So what I mean by people being ultimately their inferior function, um, when you get to know someone over time, you could really see the effect of the inferior function, and it seems like it has a deeper truth to the type, more so than their primary function in a way. Um, it's either you hang out with them over time, or it doesn't have to be a long time. When you have a deep conversation, connection with someone of another type, you could see the inferior almost as the ultimate aims of that conversation, what they're driving at, what is the underlying deeper truth. And they're explaining it through their first function, but it's like the embodiment of their deeper philosophy. And you can look at it through the subtle effects of people's actions over time. It's more subtle. It's not direct and conscious and obvious as the ego functions, the primary and secondary functions. Those things are very clear up front. But I find that when you here we go. If you zoom out on someone's life, if you zoom out on someone's life and you look at it, you find that the inferior function seems to be like the ultimate aim. It seems to be like their deeper philosophy and truth. And that's when it's more obvious. And I'll give you an example. So I find that it comes out. The inferior function is more obvious. It comes out after people not okay. It's often mentioned often when people are stressed out, but not only that, it also comes out after people have a lot of fun, because then they express their happiness, and when people are happy, they kind of express their kind of ultimate aim in a bit. So in karaoke night, I hung out with INTP, ENFP, ENTP, and also ISFJ, and I'm an INFP. By the end of the day, because we had a long day together singing and bowling, that's when the inferior function really comes to the forefront. After all that, that's when it almost appears like the ego functions. They come out very clear in forefront, and the ENTP was ultimately, well, he took the microphone, and the ISFJ, he took the microphone, and he started just joking around, telling jokes, being irreverent, and kind of poking fun at things, not really being much of a feeler at all, because he's just like poking fun at things and just being very jokey. And the ENTP was ultimately trying to make sure that everyone was, doing good. That everyone's doing it. It's like an SI aim with F, almost as if SI was his main function and FE was the secondary. He was making sure everyone's doing okay, but it's like really making sure in this kind of like very grounded kind of way. The ENFP was taking care of the bill. The ENFP was taking care of the bill, making sure that our bowling was good, technique was good, and the who else? The INTP was just having a good time. It's like FE, just having a good time, and that's when it really comes out. But actually, when I look back, I see that this is what we ultimately are trying to do. So that's when it's obvious. But if you zoom out on activities we were doing, you could see that the inferior is what each of us were ultimately doing, because what was happening was that I took control in a way. I was using TE by getting people together. I got everyone together to do these activities and made sure that it happened. So I'll go through the functions and just talk about each type. So NI. So look at ESTPs and ESFPs. Moment by moment, they're very in a moment. Day by day, they're very in a moment and very active. But when you zoom out on their lives and you look down, I find that they're like the true visionaries. That's what's ultimately driving. That's ultimately why they're using SC. They're trying to experience these things. It's because they're trying to find this vision, and then they're expressing it. And I find them to be the true visionaries. Like when you zoom out, you find that they're really ultimately they can be the most inspiring people in the world. So they're accomplishing their NI main deeper philosophy through their SC actions, through their ego. And when you look at SE, yes, INTJs, INFJs, moment by moment, they're using their NI. But if you zoom out on their lives, what are they trying to get at? It's like they're ultimately fascinated by the reality of things, and by what's strong and beautiful, and they love that, what's strong and beautiful. And they're kind of fascinated about the human world, and kind of think about it almost in this kind of very just realistic kind of way. So yeah, it's still through like they're using their NI ego to figure it out, like the reality. But it's like, since reality is their ultimate aim, it's SE, and trying to figure out what that is. And when I talked with an INTJ, you could see his FI and SE come out in that. I asked, like, what is he ultimately driving towards in life? And he says, for the beauty of his soul to come out and shine to the world. And he expressed it in a very FI-SE kind of way, like it's just this beautiful aesthetic and about the soul. And INTJs often feel like they have the shell around them. So he wrote poems about how he's like living in this castle, and there's this wall around him, but he wants this light to shine through. Let's see. So FE, and I talked about this before, but IxTPs, INTPs, if you zoom out, you really see that they're the ones who ultimately care about the welfare of others more so than any other type. There's almost like a kind of a fresh simplicity to it, like this is like very, like they're kind of like loyal, but it's like almost like an innocent kind of way, kind of refreshing kind of way. And simple does not mean bad, because we often say, oh, the inferior function expresses itself in simple ways. It's therefore it's weak. In a way, the simplicity makes it stronger because it's more elegant. It's more elegant in a way. Michael Pierce mentions this about his dad, who's an INTP. In regards to like etiquette, I think sometimes INTPs could kind of have like almost like these simple ways of dealing with others, but they really commit to it, and really care about it, really care about the treatment of others through demonstrating through these kind of rules they have. SI, you can see this, I mentioned about the ENTP and ENFP, but when you talk with them, it's like they're looking for this, like this grounding, like this. And it's more so than IxTJs and IxFJs, more so than SI DOMs. SI DOMs, they do it moment by moment by moment, but that's not what they're ultimately looking for. Ultimately, the deeper philosophy of ENTPs and ENFPs is to have this grounding. They can almost have this like very nostalgic aspect of them where they really think about the past and they really reminisce about it. and they sigh about it. NE. So IxTJs, ISFJs. People say, "Oh, SI is such a serious function," but actually, I find that ultimately, IxTJs and ISFJs have this kind of a light quality about them. Especially noticeable in ISFJs, they don't take themselves too seriously. At a deeper level, they don't really take themselves too seriously, and they're really happy to hear about entrepreneurial and creative ideas. They just love hearing about that kind of stuff. Um, yes, they're kind of ISFJs are kind of irreverent and comical. If you look at one way I can define ISFJs is that they always have funny Facebook photos, like poodles chasing cheetahs, or like a lamb operating a car, like something really just goofy, and that's what they ultimately value. It's kind of a mixture of FE and NE, I guess. FI, ENTJs, ExTJs, they're the ones who are blinded by love. They're blinded by love. We may have a certain perception of TE types, but actually, if you really look at them, they're the ones who really want that deep connection and intimacy. And it really gets really sad when they lose it. Like, if a friend leaves their life, they're really sad. TE. So that's my type, and also ISFPs. There's definitely this need to have this control in our lives. Like, our lives have to be under control. And part of me is, my learning is actually to let myself relax my control over my life. But it's like, ultimately, we're like the secret directors. Like, we want to, like the karaoke night, I want to make sure that all my friends get together, and it's just like that. So I guess the lesson I learned is that the typologies, it's sophisticated. It's not that simple. It's not like, oh, there's S types and N types, and S types don't care about intuition at all. Really, if you zoom out, they're the ones who are almost like the ultimate intuitives. It may not be like a strong function or what they do moment by moment, but that's what they ultimately like. There's a deeper aspect that really about them that cherishes that even more so than intuitives. It's beautiful. There's like a dual nature to every type. There's something strangely teleological about typology. Like, every type is striving for something. There's this balance. It's not like there's just these strong functions and these weak functions, these preferred functions and unpreferred functions, and it's like we all have a certain kind of relationship to every single function, and each one has its own spin. And like your inferior function is in some way stronger than your primary function in that regard, because it represents a deeper philosophy. I could say the same for every function, that we're actually all balanced. And probably in another video I'll talk about the shadow functions, not your first four, but the last four. They're actually they operate as much in the psyche as the first four, but in more shadowy kind of ways, but just as important ways. I would say that it's more like each function has a role to play, and it's not merely about what one's stronger than the other, and it's simply they have different roles. So I won't say that the primary function is what plays the main role. I actually disagree with that. They all are characters in your book, and they all are important, and it's very hard to explain, but there's just something really beautiful about it.